Depending on who you ask, tanking can be either one of the greatest innovations or greatest threats to competitive sports entertainment.
It's a simple enough concept. The worst team gets the best pick. And spending one whole year in last place can land you a franchise-saving talent.
We've seen its success in the NBA. As hard as it's been to watch, tanking NBA teams collect the best upcoming talent year after year.
In the NBA, however, there's only 5 guys on the court, so it really only takes one to turn it all around.
Today we debate whether the practice of tanking can be effectively applied to the NFL.
There's a much bigger margin for error tanking in the NFL than any other sport.
With only 16 games in the season, you could be the worst team, but if you manage to scrape 3 wins together, you might have just cost yourself the first pick.
And unless you're getting a franchise QB, that number 1 overall pick won't turn your entire franchise around like it might in the NBA.
It's worth mentioning, however, that in the NFL, if you get the first pick, you're picking at the top of every round. If you play your cards right, you can turn that into some talent.
Let's dive into this analysis by looking at the 3 worst teams in the NFL of the last 20 years and see how their tank seasons worked out for them.
The 2007 Miami Dolphins were doomed before they ever got started. Nick Saban's accomplishments as the Dolphins head coach include vetoing a trade that would have landed Drew Brees in Miami and outright lying about not accepting a job as the head coach of Alabama.
The 07 Dolphins brought a new head coach, Cam Cameron. He used a number of quarterbacks to squeeze out 15 losses and just 1 overtime win in this kind of pathetic season.
Over the middle, Camarillo's got it! 40! He might score! He may throw the defense! The Bobby
Miami cleaned house the following year. Cameron was fired, and owner Wayne Huzanga sold the team to Stephen Ross.
In the 2008 draft, Miami drafted future Pro Bowl Jake Long with the number 1 overall pick. Got quarterback Chad Henne in the second round, as well as 5 other linemen.
To the naked eye, the Dolphins tank worked. They got a quarterback for the future, and they went 11-5 next year with new head coach Tony Sperano.
Their success, however, was short-lived and misleading. 2008 was Chad Pennington's only healthy season in Miami, and it was the only year the Wildcat offense had any kind of success.
They've pulled out all the stops here in New England.
In the 11 years since the Wildcat, Miami has averaged 7 wins a year, only breaking into double-digit wins once.
Miami's tank, if it was a tank, turned out to be a failure. Quarterback Chad Henne never became a franchise QB, and all the other pieces they drafted didn't turn out to much either.
Moving on to our next tank season, we have the only team in league history to fail to win one single game. We have the 2008 0-16 Detroit Lions.
The Lions were 7-9 the year before, and hadn't won more than 9 games in the previous 10 seasons.
Their tank was impressive. They got blown out in all but 5 games. Poor Calvin Johnson was the only receiver on this team to catch more than 1 touchdown.
Following the embarrassing season, the Lions brought in a new GM and a new head coach.
The 3 seasons after 2008, the Lions went 2-14, 6-10, and then in 2011, coach Jim Schwartz finally got them a playoff spot with 10-6.
What changed to cause this improvement? Let's look back at the 2009 draft. The Lions' prize for being the worst team in NFL history? A guy named Matt Stafford.
Stafford and the Lions haven't been perfect, but we did see a few promising seasons with coach Jim Caldwell, and now we see Matt Patricia trying to bring them back to the postseason.
Despite their imperfections, I'm going to call the Lions tank a half success. They lost 16 games and got their franchise QB for the next decade and even more. If the front office surrounds him with better talent, they would have a lot more success.
The last tanking team covers 2 seasons, but one could say it's lasted a lifetime.
The 2016 and 2017 Cleveland Browns combined for a record of 1-31.
With Hugh Jackson the head coach, they trotted out Cody Kessler, Josh McCown, and RG3 at QB, whose combined efforts got them 1 win.
The 2017 draft saw them get Myles Garrett, David Njoku, and Deshaun Kaiser. And these 3 additions played a big role in helping the team improve to 0 wins that next season.
Jackson and Kaiser really outdid themselves in 2017. The Browns were one of the worst teams ever. They almost managed to beat the Steelers in the last game of the season, but they blew it in the most Browns way possible.
Somehow escapes. Kaiser's pass is incomplete. Right through the hands of Coleman.
The Browns used their 2018 draft picks to grab Baker Mayfield at 1, Denzel Ward at 4, and Nick Chubb in round 2.
They also went and got Kareem Hunt, Jarvis Landry, and OBJ in the offseason. To start the year, people were actually picking the Browns to win the AFC North.
But just the same as the Dolphins and Lions attempt to tank, it only works if you come away with that franchise QB. Miami didn't, Detroit did, and Cleveland
didn't. I'll say it, I don't think Baker's good. If you give me Chubb, Jarvis, Kareem Hunt, OBJ, I can get you 8 wins.
Browns fired Freddie Kitchens after 1 year and moved on to their 8th head coach in 1 decade.
The Browns, Lions, and Dolphins are owners of 4 of the worst 5 seasons of the 21st century. We'll get to the 5th in a second, but first, let's take a look at the overall success and failures of tanking in the NFL.
Yes, tanking gets you some high draft picks, and if you can finish last a couple years in a row, you can rack up some serious talent.
But in organizations as dysfunctional as the Browns, Dolphins, and Lions, the only thing that's been able to completely turn a franchise around is a franchise QB.
Think about the Colts in 2011. They made the playoffs with Peyton Manning for 9 straight years, go 2-14 once, and land the #1 overall pick.
They turned that #1 pick into Andrew Luck and instantly went back to their winning ways.
A franchise QB might be the only thing that instantly makes you a better team, maybe the only thing worth tanking for.
That 5th terrible season we mentioned a second ago belongs to the 2019 0-16 Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bengals were a playoff team as little as 5 years ago. In 2019, Andy Dalton led the team to a path of failure. It got so bad that when All-Pro wide receiver AJ Green was going to come back healthy in Week 8, they just told him to sit the rest of the season.
The 2019 Bengals saw their fans cutting eye holes in paper bags, but it got them exactly what they wanted.
The success of the Bengals tank comes down to whether or not Joe Burrow is that franchise QB that they hope he is.
Therein lies the key to success for any NFL team that chooses to tank. A 6-10 team is probably getting a top 10 pick, so the only real way to tank is to be the absolute worst of the worst.
And the only real way to see success with that draft is by getting that poor QB that's tasked with saving a franchise.
Suck for luck worked. Blow for Burrow worked. If you get that franchise QB, tanking can work.
But it's a dangerous game to wait for some QB to come along and save you.
Speaking for the Cleveland Browns and my Miami Dolphins, that search for a savior can take decades. Tanking one season to get that franchise QB is tempting.
But if you bet on that and it doesn't work, all you're left with is disappointment and a losing football team.